Tropical depression Alex is entering the Gulf of Mexico. Its destination unknown. That is the subject of this afternoon's tropical update here on IPR365.com with the latest on Alex, which really, taking a look at the Atlantic, is the only feature we've got. We've got a wave down here, way down in the central Atlantic, but it's still a little early, although, you know, this hurricane season, who knows what's going on. We have that upper level low with what used to be 94L sitting here, and it doesn't appear that anything's going to happen with that. We do have Celia, or I'm sorry, this is Darby out here in the Eastern Pacific weakening, not going to be a factor. Really, the only factor is going to be Alex over the next several days, as it really, we've seen some changes today that are a bit disturbing, especially for the United States, more so than, say, yesterday. Now here's the latest on Alex as of 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. The center is at 19.2 north, 90.9 west. That means Alex is right off the coast here, just moving back out over water. Winds are 35 miles per hour, and there is actually a report that winds are about sustained at that. So this has kept status over the Yucatan of winds of at least 35 miles an hour. It's moving west-northwest at 9, so slow. This is a slow-moving storm, and as it moves over water the next few days, it'll be moving very slow. 999 millibars, still keeping a pressure under 1,000 millibars. So this looks ready to start to reorganize once it leaves. It should quickly become a tropical storm again, then a hurricane, then a stronger hurricane by Wednesday as it roars ashore somewhere in northern Mexico. But there is more uncertainty now as to how far north Alex will get. There is some indication that it could pull far enough north to even be a threat here to the upper Texas coast, or potentially even Louisiana. If that were to occur, we'd then be talking about a landfall there. Also, the longer Alex stays over water, the stronger it's going to get. The environment's going to be very favorable for strengthening. We saw it almost become a hurricane yesterday, and even after it moved inland, it formed an inner core. So if it does start strengthening quickly, it could become a major hurricane before landfall. But the big question is that in northern Mexico, or is that a major hurricane threat for the Gulf Coast? So this is why things are changing quickly. Now, the last 3 days, the model guidance has changed. You can see 2 days ago, the models, some had it going into Mexico, most had it heading towards Louisiana and the North Gulf Coast. Then yesterday they shifted again back west, and it seemed pretty certain that it was going to just continue right on into Mexico. Today, you can see they've shifted north again, and most of them seem to have this indication that the storm's going to bump northward, then kind of bend back west, then northward again. Even the models taking it into Mexico kind of hook it to the north at the end. And this is all being determined by a ridge of high pressure that's sitting in here, and we're going to see how this ridge breaks down. Now, let's take a look at Alex as of right now, just to give you an indication of where it's sitting. And you can see there's the tropical storm, well, a depression now, spinning very, very nicely there, right at the end, leaving the coastline, keeping a well-defined circulation, very good symmetry, banding the classical hurricane shape that it's going to take with it into the Gulf of Mexico on a track that generally should continue it in this direction at least over the next 2 to 3 days, which means that if this starts to strengthen overnight tonight and all day tomorrow, which is when really the big strengthening is expected to start, and it's only Monday night and it has Tuesday and Wednesday night over water still. That was the fear even mentioned by the Hurricane Center this morning, that there would be at least a moderate risk of this becoming a major hurricane that's category 3 or above. So this is not something that might just be a little bit of rainfall and some gusty winds. This does have hurricane or strong hurricane potential for northern Mexico and South Texas. But again, if it does start to move a little bit more north, that would have to be extended further up the Texas and perhaps, just perhaps, Louisiana coastline. Now the Canadian model in here does show the system, you can see, becoming a hurricane and hitting Louisiana, and you can see that even better, even a little bit of an eye-type feature almost forming there on the model. Not sure if that's relevant, but definitely showing the storm spinning up and then hitting Louisiana, and then ending up over the Midwest in about 5 days over Missouri here. Also note it shows another storm developing and moving into the southern Caribbean that we'd have to deal with that would be a pretty nasty thing to have to deal with at this time. The GFDL model doesn't make the system too strong. The Hurricane Center noted that this afternoon, that usually the GFDL and the HWRF model in a situation like this would make this storm a Category 5 hurricane, but they're not. It's making it a moderate tropical storm into the Brownsville, Texas region, northern Mexico, that area there. And the HWRF model, 114 hours, is making the system a very tight circulation, 976 millibars, although that may be a bit off, but only 60-mile-an-hour winds. And let me tell you, folks, if it spent that much time over water, with the environment it's going to be in, with these closed isobars like that and that tiny little eye, that'd be a heck of a lot stronger than 60 miles an hour. Now, why all the uncertainty? That's the big question. What's going on with the track? Well, here's the latest water vapor of the eastern United States, and you can see a few features I'll point out. First of all, we have an upper level low sitting down here. That's what tore up our 94L, and the winds like that flowing around it. And that might help to kind of create a little vent here for Alex as it moves on up off the Yucatan. We have a trough of low pressure way up here in Canada on the border, and this is digging down. And it's thought that the high pressure sitting in here is going to kind of back away, and that will allow Alex to gain latitude. Now that's the fear, that this thing's going to be moving out more towards open waters. There's a big difference between gaining some latitude way down here and then moving straight into Mexico, and being over water, gaining latitude for days, and then that slow bend back to the west. That would be a lot more serious. So what the models are hinting at is that this trough is going to weaken the ridging enough to allow Alex to slip to the north, and if it builds it back in, will it be in time to miss the United States and go into Mexico? Or will Alex get pushed into Texas? Or does the ridge break down so much that Alex ends up making it to intercoastal city, Louisiana? Stay on alert. We don't know. This is what's going on with this storm at this time, and this is what's really frustrating about it. Now, the upper level winds, as I mentioned, the wind shear is extremely low over Alex. There should be nothing to prevent this from becoming a strong hurricane. By strong right now, 90 miles an hour, but again, this morning it was forecast to become a Category 2, and certainly a major hurricane cannot be ruled out if it stays over water long enough. And again, it's all about how long it stays over water. If this were sailing west, due west at 18, yeah, it wouldn't become a hurricane or a major hurricane. The fact that this thing is continuing to the northwest and potentially then bending back west, we're talking about the chance that this does become an intense storm. And that's really what's going to be causing problems for people as time progresses. Again, Alex is going to be a feature we're going to have to keep an eye on, but also the central Atlantic. See how low wind shear is out there? Well, we don't have any waves out there right now, but check this out. Here's the satellite imagery out of Africa. See this low pressure? There's a low associated with it. It appears to be skipping a little bit further north, but there is convection, and so we'll wait and see if this tropical wave does anything. This might be the wave the Canadian model makes a hurricane entering the southwest Caribbean, in southeast Caribbean rather, in just a few days. Again, that's really the only game in town as far as the Atlantic's concerned. In the eastern Pacific, we're still dealing with two storms. We're not going to be talking about these in the coming days because we're going to have a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, and besides, they're dying out. Darby is weakening and it's moving east. Not going to do much. It's getting hurt by Alex up here. Celia, one-time Cat 5, barely a tropical storm moving out. Look at the dry, stable, colder water. Look at all this stable air out here. Celia is not going to be a problem at all, but we're still going to have a problem with our Alex. Alex is definitely going to be a problem there. As you see the visible as it enters the Gulf of Mexico, destination unknown. Right now, if you were anywhere from Tampico all the way over to, I'd say, Morgan City, Louisiana, this entire stretch of coast, you have to be on the alert and be overlooking your hurricane plans in case what will likely be Hurricane Alex ends up moving your way. Just how strong will Alex get? Right now, at least a potent Category 1 hurricane. Maybe a Category 2, perhaps even a major hurricane at this point. It's still too early. It'll depend on how long Alex stays over water. But if it does move over water and stick around, we're really going to have some problems with it. I'm Mike Naso from IPR. That's the latest on Alex. I'll see you next time.